The war above our heads. The night sky was never the same again. For centuries, humanity had gazed at the stars with wonder, dreaming of what lay beyond. But when the war came, those same stars turned into a graveyard. Two alien empires, locked in a brutal conflict that had lasted longer than human civilization itself, brought their fight to our solar system. The battles between them shattered moons, turned asteroids to dust, and lit up the void with weapons we couldn't begin to comprehend. We called them the Cathari and the Zorveth. One was a species of towering, insectoid warriors, their exoskeletons gleaming like obsidian armor. The other, reptilian, with scales hardened by evolution on a world of constant war. Both were ancient, both were ruthless, and neither cared about the tiny blue planet that circled an unremarkable star. For 15 years, Earth watched in silence. Our satellites recorded every skirmish, every maneuver, every terrifying display of technology beyond human understanding. Our scientists studied their weapons, their ships, their tactics. Governments held their breath, praying that we would remain unnoticed, while the militaries of the world prepared for the day we wouldn't be so lucky. Then the balance of power shifted. The war had raged for so long that both species were nearing exhaustion. Their fleets, once endless, had been whittled down to remnants. Their forces were spread thin. Supplies ran low, and desperation set in. That was when they looked at Earth. Maybe they saw a staging ground, a resource-rich planet waiting to be harvested, or a strategic position to refuel and regroup. Maybe it was nothing more than bad luck. But in the end, their reasons didn't matter. What mattered was that humanity refused to be collateral damage. Project Revenant. Earth had never been a united planet, not truly. Wars, politics, and borders had always divided us. But the moment the first Cathari dreadnought appeared in our orbit, all of that changed. For years, our best minds had been preparing for this possibility. The brightest scientists, engineers, and strategists worked in secret, hidden deep beneath mountains, beneath oceans, beneath layers of deception so thick that not even the most powerful telescopes could have seen what we were building. We called it Project Revenant. It wasn't just a fleet. It wasn't just a weapon. It was everything we had learned, everything we had stolen, and everything we had created, designed for one purpose: to prove that humanity was not a footnote in someone else's war. When the first warning signals came, when the combined remnants of both the Cathari and Zorveth fleets moved into Earth's orbit, Project Revenant was activated. The moment they crossed the line, it was over. A world on the edge. Captain Elias Vance stood on the command deck of the UNSC Aegis, one of humanity's hidden warships, watching the impossible unfold. His ship, one of hundreds hidden deep beneath the surface, had been launched just minutes ago, rising from the depths of the Pacific like a phantom. Above, the alien fleets had begun their descent, their weapons glowing with the promise of annihilation. "Sir, the Zorvath carriers are deploying landing forces," Lieutenant Juno Park reported, her fingers dancing over the holo display. "They're sending drop pods, thousands of them." Vance clenched his jaw. He had seen the reports, the footage of what these creatures did to conquered worlds. They didn't negotiate. They didn't leave survivors. Not this time. "Bring up the Netherstorm protocol." Juno hesitated for only a second before tapping the command into the system. Across the planet, hidden Railvin batteries, orbital cannons, and electromagnetic disruptors powered up. Project Revenant wasn't just a fleet. It was a trap. And the moment the aliens entered the kill zone, Earth sprung it shut. The sky burned. The trap is sprung. The war had finally come to Earth. For 15 years, humanity had been a silent observer, watching the Cathari and Zorvath tear through the solar system like vengeful gods. Our technology had been nothing compared to theirs, our weapons mere toys in the face of their war machines. They had ignored us, and in return, we had studied them, every maneuver, every battle, every desperate gambit they played in their endless war. And now, their desperation had brought them here. The remnants of two dying empires descended upon Earth, battered but still powerful. They had no idea that the moment they entered our atmosphere, they had already lost. The sky burns. From the bridge of the UNSC Aegis, Captain Elias Vance watched as thousands of enemy warships positioned themselves in low orbit. The massive Cathari dreadnoughts, bristling with jagged, organic-looking armor, moved like silent predators, while the Zorvath carriers, colossal hunks of metal reinforced with plasma shielding, prepared for planetary assault. Vance exhaled slowly. It's finally happening. "How many drop pods have launched?" he asked, his voice calm despite the chaos unfolding above. "Estimated at over 10,000, Lieutenant Juno Park reported. Mostly Zorvath shock troops, but Cathari boarding craft are mixed in. They're aiming for major population centers: New York, Beijing, London, Johannesburg." She hesitated. "Sir, it's a full-scale planetary invasion." Vance's grip tightened on the edge of the holotable. "Not today. Not on his watch." "Execute Netherstorm Protocol," he ordered. Juno nodded, sending the command. In an instant, the sky erupted. Project Revenant awakens. For 15 years, humanity had been preparing. Project Revenant was more than just a fleet. It was a planetary defense network hidden beneath mountains, oceans, and deep space relay stations. The moment the alien forces committed to their attack, they had unknowingly entered the kill box. Along the coasts, railgun platforms disguised as oil rigs came online, unleashing kinetic rounds at Mach 10. The sheer velocity of the projectiles turned alien drop pods into shrapnel, tearing through them before they could even reach the surface. In orbit, the first wave of automated drone swarms activated. They weren't like anything the Cathari or Zorvath had encountered before. Each one was the size of a human fist, packed with explosive payloads and an adaptive AI that predicted enemy movements in real time. The alien fleet scrambled, but it was already too late. The Netherstorm orbital disruptors, massive EMP satellites hidden in deep space orbits, detonated simultaneously. Waves of electromagnetic interference rippled through space, short-circuiting enemy sensors, scrambling their targeting systems, and leaving entire capital ships drifting, powerless. Then came the counterattack. The human war machine. Hundreds of ships rose from the oceans, sleek, angular, built with every stolen piece of technology we had reverse-engineered over the past decade. The UHS Revenant, humanity's first supercarrier, led the charge, deploying fighter squadrons armed with particle lances and fusion torpedoes. These weren't crude imitations of alien weapons. They were better, faster, more efficient, more human. The first wave of enemy warships didn't even have time to react before they were torn apart by coordinated fire. Their armor, once impenetrable against conventional weapons, was useless against human ingenuity. Plasma disruptors overloaded their shields. Electromagnetic rounds shattered their hulls. They had studied us as primitives. They never imagined that we would evolve beyond them. Hell on Earth. But even as the battle in orbit turned in humanity's favor, the ground war had already begun. Despite the devastation of the Netherstorm defenses, some enemy forces still made it through. Thousands of Cathari warriors and Zorvath shock troopers landed across the planet, emerging from drop pods like nightmarish creatures from another world. The Cathari were fast, insect-like creatures with razor-sharp limbs and bioplasma weaponry attached to their exoskeletons. The Zorvath were walking tanks, standing over 9 feet tall, their armor nearly impenetrable. In the past, against any other world, their invasion would have been unstoppable. But Earth was different, because Earth had been waiting. Elite strike teams, equipped with exosuits powered by hybrid energy cores, met them on the battlefield. Soldiers wielding mag-accelerated rifles capable of punching through Cathari exoskeletons like paper held the line. From the rooftops of war-torn cities, drones rained hellfire, using AI-assisted targeting to pick off enemy commanders. And from deep underground, Project Revenant's final surprise activated. The Titans of Earth. From hidden bunkers across the globe, the Titan-class war mechs emerged. Standing 50 feet tall, piloted by the best soldiers Earth had to offer, these war machines had been humanity's best-kept secret, a fusion of brute force and adaptive AI. Each Titan was a walking fortress, capable of unleashing artillery barrages, plasma bursts, and electromagnetic pulses with devastating precision. The first Titan, ironclad, stepped onto the battlefield in Berlin, facing down an entire Zorveth assault force. The alien invaders barely had time to react before a railgun round the size of a truck turned their commander into dust. In Tokyo, Titan Leviathan crashed through the skyline, smashing the Cathari war beast into a burning wreck with a single strike of its energy hammer. In Washington, D.C., Titan Goliath deployed disruptor mines, turning an entire Zorveth battalion into a sea of fire. The aliens had never faced anything like this. The battle had barely begun, but the outcome was already decided. Humanity was not a passive observer. Humanity was the storm. In orbit, on board the Zorveth command ship, Supreme Warlord Crixith Var stared at the battlefield in horror. This was supposed to be an easy conquest. Instead, it was a massacre. His fleet was crippled. His warriors were dying by the thousands. And then, for the first time in their history, the Zorveth received a transmission from Earth. The screen flickered to life. A human stood before him. Elias Vance, the man who had orchestrated Earth's response. His expression was calm, unreadable. "You should have left us alone," Vance said simply. Then he gave the order. "All units, wipe them out. Extinction comes for the invaders." The war had lasted for 15 years, but the moment humanity joined, it was over in 5 hours. Above Earth, the remnants of two warring empires, the Cathari and the Zorveth, faced the unthinkable. Their battered fleets, once symbols of unstoppable dominance, were now little more than wreckage floating in orbit, torn apart by humanity's long-hidden weapons. On the ground, their invasion forces had expected a helpless, terrified species, weak, divided, unprepared. What they got was hell. Humanity had been waiting for this moment, and when it came, we did not hesitate. The slaughter in the skies. In the cold vacuum of space, what had once been an alien armada was now a battlefield of fire and ruin. The UHS Revenant, Earth's first supercarrier, unleashed coordinated fusion torpedoes and particle lances, ripping through the already weakened enemy warships with surgical precision. Each blast cut through Cathari hulls like they were made of paper, sending massive chunks of their organic ships spiraling into the void. The Zorveth fared no better. Their once impenetrable plasma shields flickered and failed as Earth's electromagnetic disruptors bombarded them relentlessly. Human railguns, moving at 10 times the speed of sound, shattered their capital ships one by one. On board the UHS Aegis, Captain Elias Vance watched it all unfold. "Status report," he commanded. Lieutenant Juno Park scanned the battlefield. Cathari fleet is down to 30% strength. Zorveth forces are crumbling. Their command ship is barely holding together. They're trying to retreat. Vance narrowed his eyes. Denied. Juno tapped a command into the holotable. From the dark side of the moon, humanity's final weapon activated. The Hammer of Earth. For years, we had feared total planetary destruction. The Cathari and Zorveth had weapons capable of shattering entire worlds. Humanity had spent years preparing a response. And now, we used it. Asterisk asterisk, the Hammer of Earth. Asterisk asterisk, a massive kinetic bombardment platform, launched its first payload. A 20,000-ton tungsten rod, traveling at orbital velocity, descended toward the largest Zorveth warship. The ship's plasma defenses activated, desperate to stop it. But physics doesn't care about desperation. The impact was apocalyptic. The Zorveth command ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy released on impact outmatched a nuclear detonation, sending a shockwave of destruction through the remnants of the fleet. All remaining Zorvath ships broke formation. Some tried to run. Some surrendered. Vance stared at the screen. There would be no mercy. All units, he said coldly, eliminate them. And then, in the cold darkness of space, the once mighty fleets of two alien empires were erased. Hell unleashed on Earth. But even as victory in orbit was secured, the real war was being fought on the ground. The Cathari and Zorvath warriors who had landed on Earth expected an easy conquest. They had ravaged worlds before, burned civilizations to ash, torn apart species who had no way to resist. But Earth was different, because unlike those other civilizations, we had been watching, studying, learning. And when the war finally came to our doorstep, we didn't just defend ourselves. We counterattacked. The streets become a war zone. In New York City, Zorvath shock troopers stormed the streets, their plasma rifles scorching the asphalt, their massive hulking frames tearing through human structures like cardboard. They were unstoppable. Until they weren't. From the ruined skyscrapers, human snipers equipped with electromagnetic rifles fired precise headshots, turning the towering reptilian warriors into lifeless husks. In the alleys, special forces equipped with adaptive cloaking suits emerged like ghosts, striking with razor-sharp monomolecular blades that severed the enemy's armor like butter. The Zorvath didn't understand. How had this species, this primitive, barely interstellar species, become so deadly? In Berlin, a Cathari swarm descended on the city, their razor-limbed warriors scaling buildings, their bioplasma weapons tearing through human barricades. They expected easy prey. Instead, they faced the Titans of war. Humanity's greatest creation. The Titan-class war mechs stomped onto the battlefield. Standing 50 feet tall, these armored behemoths were powered by a fusion of alien technology and human ingenuity. Titan ironclad met a Cathari swarm head-on, its rotary cannons tearing through insectoid warriors as if they were made of paper. Titan Leviathan fired a railgun shot so powerful that it turned an entire Cathari command center into rubble. And Titan Goliath, armed with plasma-coated blades, charged through an advancing Zorvath battalion, cutting their towering warriors in half. The ground shook beneath humanity's onslaught. For the first time in their history, the Cathari and Zorvath knew fear. The final stand. The last remnants of the Cathari and Zorvath forces retreated toward their landing zones, desperate to regroup, to escape, to survive. They never made it. From the skies, human bombers descended. High-orbit plasma strikes rained down from humanity's fleet, scorching entire alien divisions before they could escape. Titan war mechs marched through the battlefield, crushing any resistance beneath their metal feet. And then, as the last alien stronghold fell, the Cathari and Zorvath finally understood. This was not just a defeat. It was an extinction. They had thought themselves gods. They had underestimated us. And now, their entire species would pay the price. The broadcast to the galaxy. As the last Cathari and Zorvath fell, humanity did something the aliens had never expected. We sent a message to the rest of the galaxy. The transmission went out on every known frequency, translated into 1,000 languages, broadcasted across every corner of known space. A simple message. Earth is not weak. We are not prey. We are not your conquest. We are the storm. Come for us again, and you will face extinction. And then, the message cut to black. Across the galaxy, alien empires watched in horror. For 15 years, humanity had been silent. Now, we had spoken, and the universe would never be the same again. The aftermath of annihilation. The war was over. The battlefields were silent. The sky, once filled with the blazing trails of energy weapons and the burning husks of dying warships, now held only the wreckage of two fallen empires. Humanity had won. But victory was not the end. It was only the beginning. Because across the galaxy, they were watching. Other species, those who had once ignored Earth, seeing us as nothing more than a primitive, irrelevant backwater, had witnessed what we did to the Cathari and the Zorvath. And now, they were afraid. But fear alone wouldn't stop them from trying. And humanity, we weren't done yet. The ruins of the enemy. On the surface of Earth, where alien armies had once marched, only ashes remained. The bodies of the Cathari and Zorvath lay scattered across ruined cities, their lifeless husks a testament to their final failed invasion. Their weapons, their armor, their technology, all left behind. And humanity. We took everything. In Washington, D.C., deep within a classified underground bunker, the largest post-war debriefing in human history was taking place. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists gathered around holographic displays that flickered with stolen alien schematics. Dr. Lucius Harrington, one of Earth's leading xenotechnologists, stood before the council. He was smiling. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying a tone of quiet triumph, "we are standing on the threshold of a new age." He gestured to the screen, where the reverse-engineered blueprints of Zorvath plasma weaponry and Cathari organic ship cores glowed with promise. "We have won more than a battle. We have won their knowledge, their secrets, their technology." He turned to the assembled world leaders. Humanity has just taken its first step toward the stars. And no one, not the Cathari, not the Zorvath, not any other species in this galaxy, will ever threaten us again. A message to the stars. But even as humanity prepared for a technological revolution, the rest of the galaxy was watching with terror. The Cathari and Zorvath had not been small players in the galactic order. They had been powerhouses. And now, they were nothing. The once great empires that had waged war for centuries were now extinct, erased in a matter of hours by a species the galaxy had barely acknowledged. And the message Earth had sent, the warning, the threat, had rippled across the stars. On the distant world of Vexkar, the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Council watched the final footage of the battle with wide, horrified eyes. The humans hadn't just defended their planet. They had exterminated 2 entire war fleets. This was not the act of a species fighting for survival. This was vengeance. This was dominance. And it had been brutally efficient. The Chancellor turned to his advisors, his voice heavy with unease. "We can no longer ignore them," he murmured. "Earth is no longer an observer. They are a power now. And if we do not act carefully..." His voice trailed off as he stared at the last image of the battle. A human Titan war mech, standing in the ruins of a Cathari stronghold, holding the broken body of an alien warlord in its colossal metal hands. The Chancellor shuddered. "If we do not act carefully," he whispered, "they may be the last power left." The fleet rises, humanity's warships, once hidden beneath the oceans, buried under ice, disguised in the void, were no longer secrets. Now, they were being built in the open. The UHF Revenant had been our first true battle carrier, a symbol of what we were capable of. Now, in Earth's orbit, entire shipyards worked day and night to build a fleet that could rival the stars themselves. In high orbit, the UHS Eclipse, a dreadnought 3 times the size of any known Cathari warship, was in its final stages of construction. Its hull was lined with Zorvath plasma turrets, now modified and enhanced by human engineers. Its engines were powered by Cathari fusion cores, stripped of their original weaknesses, and rebuilt for maximum efficiency. And in its heart, a weapon never before seen in the galaxy. A weapon designed not for war, but for obliteration. The Singularity Cannon. A weapon that could collapse space itself, tearing apart fleets, planets, even entire solar systems if needed. It was the ultimate deterrent, a final warning to any species who dared think that Earth would ever bow. The future of humanity. As the first interstellar fleet of Earth prepared for launch, the final pieces of the war fell into place. The remaining Cathari and Zorvath survivors, those who had surrendered or been captured, were gathered for a final judgment. In a secure chamber deep within the Earth's core, the last surviving Cathari warlord, Skilith, knelt before a tribunal of human generals and leaders. His once proud exoskeleton was scared and broken, his mandibles twitching as he spoke. "You do not understand what you have done," he hissed. "You think you have won, but you have only painted a target on your back. The galaxy will not allow a species as dangerous as yours to exist." General Alexandra Mercer leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "No," she said simply. "The galaxy will not allow a species like yours to exist." Skilith flinched as she continued. "You invaded our world. You burned our cities. You slaughtered our people without hesitation." She stood, stepping closer, her voice quiet and cold. "And now, you beg for mercy." Skilith's mandibles clicked nervously. You cannot destroy an entire species. That would make you no better than us." Mercer smiled. "Oh, we're better than you," she said, "because we finish what we start." And with that, the Cathari warlord was dragged away. To the rest of the galaxy, his kind had already been wiped from the stars. But Earth had one final message to send. A simple transmission, broadcast on every known channel, reaching every empire, every world, every leader. A simple declaration. We are humanity. We watched, we learned, we adapted. And now, we are coming. The rise of the apex species. The war was over, but the real battle had just begun. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of. The destruction of two mighty interstellar empires in a matter of hours had sent shockwaves through every known civilization. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a bystander. We were no longer prey. We were the apex species. And now, we were preparing for what came next. Because while the Cathari and the Zorveth had fallen, the galaxy was far from empty. And those who still remained had a decision to make. Would they bow? Or would they burn? The gathering storm. Across the stars, whispers of terror spread like wildfire. In the halls of the Galactic High Council, species that had once viewed themselves as untouchable now huddled in desperation, frantically debating their next move. On the ancient world of Veltharun, the Council's central chamber, an immense cathedral of stone and light, older than human civilization itself, was filled with the voices of fearful rulers. The Drelthak dynasty, an empire that had ruled for over 40,000 years, demanded immediate action. The Exither Dominion, a species of hyper-intelligent, silicon-based entities, calculated that if humanity continued at its current pace, they would surpass all known civilizations within a century. And the Velkari sovereignty, a race of amphibious warlords, quietly prepared their fleets for what they believed was the only viable option, a preemptive strike. But amidst the chaos, one voice spoke louder than the others. The arbiter of the council, Jekvan. A being who had overseen the laws of the galactic community for over 1,000 years. He rose from his seat, his many eyes narrowing as he spoke. "The humans have done the impossible," he said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "They have risen from nothing. They have conquered not just their world, but the stars themselves." He looked around at the gathered rulers, his expression unreadable. "And now, they ask a question none of us are prepared to answer." A silence fell. Then Jekvan spoke again. "Will we make them our allies?" His gaze hardened. "Or will we force them to be our executioners?" No one spoke, because deep down, they all knew the truth. The decision was no longer theirs to make. Because humanity. We had already made ours, the first human invasion. For all of galactic history, Earth had been a backwater planet, a primitive world on the edge of known space. But now, humanity was no longer defending itself. Now, we were expanding. And the first step, the annihilation of the last Cathari stronghold. The remnants of the once mighty Cathari Empire had fled to a distant moon, Zalveris, desperately hoping to regroup. But humanity had not forgotten. We did not forgive. And we sure as hell did not let our enemies escape. Operation Extinction. Aboard the UHS Eclipse, Earth's most powerful warship, Admiral Marcus Voss stood before his fleet. The massive holographic war map displayed Sol Veris, its surface crawling with the last of the Cathari resistance. They had barricaded themselves behind plasma shields, planetary defense cannons, and war mechs, a fortress built from the ashes of their dying race. But none of it would save them. Not from what was coming. Voss turned to his officers, his voice steady. "This is not just an assault," he said. "This is retribution." He gestured toward the planet. "They came to our world. They burned our cities. They slaughtered our people." His expression darkened. "And now we show them what happens when humanity returns the favor." A single command was given, and the fleet descended upon Sol Veris like a vengeful storm. The final stand of the Cathari. The Cathari had prepared for an invasion. What they had not prepared for was humanity. The attack began with orbital bombardments, wiping out key fortifications in seconds. Then came the Titan war mechs, 10-story behemoths of metal and death, crushing through enemy defenses like they were made of paper. And finally, the Black Sun troopers, elite human soldiers, clad in adaptive power armor, moving faster than any Cathari had ever seen, wielding weapons that had been reverse-engineered from their own technology, only deadlier. The battle lasted less than an hour. By the end, the once proud warriors of the Cathari were nothing more than corpses in the dirt. And as the last remaining Cathari leader fell to his knees, wounded and broken, Admiral Voss stepped forward. The alien wheezed, his mandibles twitching. Please, mercy." Voss knelt down, his expression unreadable. "Mercy," he repeated. He thought about the billions who had died when the Cathari first invaded Earth. The cities reduced to rubble, the families torn apart. Voss raised his weapon. And then, the Cathari ceased to exist. Not as a species, not as an empire, but as a memory. And the galaxy watched in silence, a universe on the edge. The war had started with humanity being dismissed, ignored, underestimated. But now, the galaxy had seen what we truly were. Not just survivors, not just warriors, but something far worse. The new dominant species. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy faced a terrifying truth. The humans had not just won the war. We had only just begun. And the real question was no longer whether other species would challenge us.